Hey, what's going on everybody? This is Ken, and right here I have the Nikon D600. So this is a full frame DSLR, and on this camera I have the 35mm 1.8G DX lens. So this lens is supposed to be on a DX camera of crop sensor DSLR, for example the Nikon D5100, which is what I'm using to record this video right now. So I just upgraded from the D5100 to the D600. So I didn't want to sell my 35mm because I really enjoy this kind of a wide angle prime lens, and I wanted to test it out on a full frame FX Nikon camera. So yeah, let's go ahead and test out how this performs on a full frame camera, even though this lens is designed for a crop sensor DSLR. First of all, just for a comparison, this image was taken with a 50mm 1.8D lens, which is designed for full frame cameras. And now let me switch to the 35mm 1.8G crop sensor DSLR lens. So it looks just like the 50mm lens, but it does have a wider angle, of course. Everything looks really sharp, and not to mention that the 35mm is a newer lens compared to my 50. Anyways, this image turned out fairly well. I just went outside to my front yard. It's a pretty sunny day today, so I just took this clown that is playing an accordion and I just took this image, and it turned out fairly well. And here's another image. By the way, all these photos were edited in Lightroom 5 and they were all raw files. So I recommend shooting in raw files because you can edit them or color correct them in Lightroom 5 to create a really nice effect, or just to create a really nice image. Alright, so I'm currently in Lightroom 5, and this software allows you to color correct your images and make it look a lot better. So this is the final result. Let me go to my original raw file, which is this one. By the way, I shot everything in raw, so you can edit them in Lightroom. So this is the original image. Looks really flat and doesn't look really that good. So after color correction and everything, it looks 10 times, 100 times better. Anyways, on the edges, you might notice that actually on the four corners, you might see some distortion and some small amount of vignetting. You can fix this up by going to lens corrections and enable profile corrections. This will fix the distortion problem that your lens may occur when you shoot outdoors or indoors. So the 35mm is designed for a crop sensor DSLR, so it does have some small issues such as distortion and vignetting on a full frame camera. So you can kind of fix it up in Lightroom. Let me show you another image, which is this one. This one was shot at f1.8, and as you can see, it still has a small amount of distortion and vignetting on the edges. Alright, let's switch to another image. This was shot at the same location, but it was at f8.0. As you can see, this still has vignetting problems, but it's getting worse. One thing you can do to fix this up is, of course, crop your image down to a smaller size. So you can crop it down and try to hide the vignetting problem. So it's a lot better already, but you do have to crop your image down. By the way, this was not color corrected or anything. This is the raw file that came straight out of my D600. Alright, now let's move on to some videos. The videos are really sharp, and it doesn't really have a large vignetting problem in videos. But of course, if you shoot at f8, f10, f15, f22, it's going to add some more vignetting on your image. Video wise, it looks really nice because it's actually true 35mm without the crop factor on crop sensor DSLRs. Alright, let's do a comparison between the 35mm lens, which is what I'm using to record this video right now, comparing it to the 50mm, which is right there. So right now, of course, this is the 30mm on my Nikon D600. As you can see, this does have a wide angle effect. Well, not really that wide angle, but it's pretty wide for a prime lens. It's 35mm, so this lens is actually very cheap. well, not cheaply made, but it's very inexpensive. This is just around $200 if you buy a brand new in a camera store, but if you go to eBay or Amazon, you can actually find a pretty nice deal to buy this lens, used lens, for around $120, $150. So this is a very inexpensive lens. So this is a fairly nice way to save some money because you don't have to go out and buy a brand new 35mm lens for your new FX full frame camera. You can still use your crop sensor 35mm 1.8G lens on your FX camera. So now let's go ahead and switch to a 50mm lens. Alright, so right now you're looking at the 50mm 1.8D lens. As you can see, it doesn't have a really wide angle compared to the 35mm, but it still does have the shallow depth of field effect because of the f1.8 f-stop. So in my opinion, I enjoy using the 35mm a bit more simply because it has a wider angle and it's still a prime lens. So in my opinion, wider angle prime lenses are better than this one, the 50mm or even the 85mm. But if you do portrait photography or things like that, this can be a very nice lens for that. But for video, I prefer using a wider angle prime lens.